Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service. I'll be hosting today's show. And up first, hazardous weather graphic. Not a lot on it. The snow advisory here for the northern panhandle, Klondike Highway to Skagway for the snow of yesterday. That's, of course, ended. Still some light snow going on up there, but much lighter than what you'd had and just barely measurable at Skagway. We still have the winter storm warning out for a short time longer, due to expire at 6 p.m. this evening. And winds already coming down. Gusts I noticed here in the last observation were down in the 20 to 30 mile an hour range, both Savunga and Gamble, down from the 65 mile an hour wind gusts and the 4 inches of snow, creating the visibility is less than a quarter mile at times that were observed earlier, and the same thing for the western coast. Otherwise, with that ending, really no watches, warnings, advisories out anywhere else in the state, although public watches and warnings, but marine's another story. With big storm coming into the Bering Sea, have gales and storms associated with that. Otherwise, we have this system here weakening. The front weakening as it pushes inland. That brought a couple inches of snow across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta areas, and you have lighter amounts so into Bristol Bay as it really breaks up in this area here, and some clouds into Kodiak as it moves in, but could bring some, probably bring some light snow across the Kuskokwim Mountains, Kuskokwim Valley, and a little bit up to the northwest. No picked up about an inch of snow today. Quite gusty winds this afternoon, about 30 to 40 miles an hour in gusts, actually from the northwest here, across the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutian areas, with gusts to 35 to 40 miles an hour current at Unalakleet, and also up at Kotzebue, with Red Dog seeing winds gusting to 45 miles an hour here, where the front's hanging together much better than it is down here into the south. Otherwise, the white here, that's just the cold ground. Temperatures 30 to 40 below zero here up over the northeast interior this afternoon, and actually maybe even colder than that. Chuck Yitzhak earlier today had a temperature 49 degrees below zero and about 45 below for Yukon. So quite cold up in that area, but winds are light. Not bad flying visibility ceiling-wise along the Arctic coast there. And some showers here over the southeast coast with a trough swinging in there. You can see the kind of unstable air circulation here actually shifting up toward Prince of Wales Island. That's where the heaviest rainfall amounts were recorded today at a place called Snider, which is southeast of Klawock. They had about 7/10 of an inch of precipitation in the last 12 hours. By comparison, Klawock only had about 1,500, and then Ketchikan had about 4/10 of an inch. And as you go north, Cake had about 1,500, and then just a few hundreds farther to the north, and then some flurries up there around the Skagway area and along the Klondike Highway. Otherwise, a break here between this system and then the weakening system coming in, basically higher pressure through this area, and outflow winds, kind of gusty along the North Gulf Coast, not really strong, not blasting out like they could, but rather breezy there, and that keeping it clear of that offshore flow into the northern, or right along the coastline there into Prince William Sound. And back out to the west, gusty west winds here, colder air and snow showers, light snow showers coming across the Pribilof Islands. The heaviest snow showers actually north of the Pribilofs there, but did clip St. Paul some light snow this afternoon, and also some snow here for the Alaska Peninsula, tapering off for the eastern Aleutians. Out in the edge of the chart there, some moisture coming up from the southwest, a little bit milder there, with some shower activity getting into the Shimia area. But that all associated, this next cloud shield, with the next big storm rolling on up. That really isn't, the pressure field really isn't on the chart yet, but the higher clouds are on the chart there on the satellite view, and precipitation starting to increase there. Otherwise, fair here, central Aleutians with some clearing. Looks like clearing today over the Fox Islands there on Alaska Nikolsky, Dutch Harbor. Snow showers, as I mentioned, there in the Pribilofs, and from about there up, pretty gusty winds with this system. And again, the snow-blowing snow Bering Strait coast, St. Lawrence Island, even western Seward Peninsula, and those gusts 40, 50 miles an hour along the northwest coast. But again, a couple inches of snow falling across the southwest interior there, and even some snow falling with 4 inches or so up in this area at the most. High pressure keeping it cold right over the upper Yukon Valley there. And that's why the temperature is in the mid-40s today or this afternoon. Arctic boundary right along the coastline with some showers either side of that, snow showers into the Wrangell Mountains, and rain or snow depending on your elevation, any elevation at all. And you've got snow here for the Panhandle, especially up in the north. It was right down to the ground, the snowfall level, and a little bit higher than that down to the south. And for tonight, that low will drift on in, so it's going to stay snowy with, again, any elevation. It'll be in the snow zone there for the southern southeast coast, but won't be all that heavy, and really scatters out up to the north, tapers off. Much like today, just some flurries left around, and dry for the North Gulf Coast. Enough gradient here to keep those outflow winds going. And then this front really washing out, but will bring some clouds, and maybe some snow showers could slip on, find their way into Kodiak Island, mainly on the Shelikof Strait side or the west side here, and maybe southern Cook Inlet. That's a real, just a slight chance, and whatever does make it into the inlet will be quite light. And over the southern inlet, it should stay clear. Eastern interior from the Arctic Ocean up here, much of the Arctic coast southward. Probably be some low clouds and fog up here over the upper Yukon Valley and areas, and possibly even the Copper River Basin. But North Gulf Coast will stay clear. Another trough will bring some snow showers to the Alaska Peninsula area and the southwest coast, but much nicer conditions. St. Lawrence Island, much lighter winds, precipitation ends, maybe some clearing, and then a little bit more of a ridge between this trough and the next big storm coming in the Bering Sea than there is between these two features here. So winds will lay down completely for the eastern Aleutians and even into the Pribilofs later on, but gale force winds come into the western Aleutians, pushing eastward by late tonight in toward Adak, and we'll see by tomorrow pretty strong storm system here. Gale and storm force winds with that over the entire Aleutians, pushing eastward. Gale force winds definitely into the Fox Islands tomorrow afternoon. Light winds, isolated snow showers along the southwest coast. Some light snow or snow showers with that trough, a couple of troughs here extending northwestward. Remnants of that frontal moisture here trying to cross the Alaska Range, really banking up on the west side there, and breezy outflow winds, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast. Still unsettled and damp there over the Panhandle. Outlook for Sunday, about the same. Another trough, really much weaker though, but still light snow, light snow with any elevation, and especially up farther to the north. With a mixture of precipitation down to sea level, and that same pattern here in the North Gulf Coast. This front elongates eastward, bringing snow changing to rain or mixed rain and snow. Kodiak Island, right on the edge there. Bristol Bay, snow, and some light snow getting up into the southern Kuskokwim Valley to the western Alaska Range. Flurries Bering Strait coast. Pretty strong northwest winds from Atka over to about Unimak Island there, but much better out to the west. And for lows tonight, anywhere from 45, 55 below here up over the upper Yukon Valley areas. Mid-30s, Tanana Valley, mid-30s there in the colder basins of the Copper River Basin, and near zero to a little below. So Sitna Valley, Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula areas, mid-20s though along the southwest coast. Highs for tomorrow, again 30 to 40 below, northeast, east interior, 15 to 20 below for the Tanana Valley, and teens south of the Alaska Range.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Moving on to flying weather here. The first graphic for Saturday morning. Trough coming in, and we're lifting northeastward here. So some areas of IFR there, Seward Peninsula on down into the mid-Yukon River Valley area there. This whole mass moving from southwest to northeast. Patch of IFR, low stuff, fog up in the flats of the Yukon, upper Yukon Valley there, where the temperatures are down around 50 below. And up here, Arctic coast, a patch of some IFR on the central coast, here on the eastern North Gulf Coast there, near or just west of Yakutat. Also the southern Panhandle looks to be IFR, and out over the western Aleutians, actually spreading into the central Aleutians. And for the afternoon, that continues to advance northward and eastward here, spreading over Unalaska and Unmac Island. At least by afternoon, marginal VFR making it to about False Pass, and good VFR northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island, and now just some marginal VFR making its way to the probably the western slopes of the western Alaska Range, back to the northwest, all the way up along the northwest coast. Marginal right along the central eastern Arctic coast, fog and IFR holding in areas of the Yukon Flats. Marginal VFR possible, Copper River Basin, IFR, eastern North Gulf Coast, marginal to IFR for the Panhandle. And for the day on Sunday morning, starting out with IFR there over the eastern part of the southeast coast and some right off Prince of Wales Island. This area IFR holding here and actually expanding a little, now coming back to about Cape Yakataga, over to Yakutat, up to the Wrangell Mountains there, and central western Copper River Basin, south central Alaska, all the way down to Kodiak VFR into northeast Bristol Bay. Still have the low stuff there in the Yukon Flats. Marginal VFR, central eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and front elongating eastward here. And so we got quite an area of IFR from the Pribilof Island, central Bering Sea there, in across the Alaska Peninsula. And for the afternoon, that continues to spread eastward here, not making much progress to the north. So east to west, central Bering Sea, Pribilofs, riding across Bristol Bay to Kodiak, not quite making it to southern Cook Inlet, but marginal VFR conditions will get into the Cook Inlet area, Kenai Peninsula, IFR in the Coast Range there, and no change for the Yukon Flats. Otherwise, the interior, pretty good VFR. Marginal central eastern Arctic coast, IFR Bering Strait coast, and IFR down over the southeast part of the southeast coast. And for passes, Xanadu and Atigan, both VFR in the forecast for tomorrow. Good VFR, seamless visibility is probably unlimited. Rainy VFR with marginal VFR coming in at sometime tomorrow, definitely by afternoon there on the western entrance with that trough pushing in. And that's same for windy there. We've got VFR conditions. And let's see, let's move on. I got the backwards there. And for the Isabel Pass, good VFR flying there. And from Antasta, VFR. Tanita, VFR. Portage, same forecast, good VFR. And Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. And I think Lake Clark and Merrill somehow got off the graphics here. And anyway, that'll be VFR for Lake Clark and Merrill with marginal VFR western entrances, both passes tomorrow afternoon. And moving on to the freezing levels here. At the surface, down across southern Kodiak Island, right along the North Gulf Coast, and just south of St. Matthew Island, 2,000 feet now south of the Aleutians, and just cutting in over the southern Panhandle. Icing with that system here coming in across the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Areas of considerable moderate here, pretty likely long in advance of the main front right there, coming into the eastern Aleutians and up southwest of the Pribilofs. Otherwise, pretty good area of light to isolated moderate rime or mixed icing there for the central western Aleutians. Kind of an area here, just a slight chance through this area up to the northwest coast. And the southeast coast, same thing, kind of a diminishing pattern there of just some scattered isolated light or mixed icing above 4,000 feet. Jet stream here, main trough down south of the Panhandle there over the Queen Charlotte. It's ridging basically here across the interior, cold northerly flow pushing off to the east, northwest flow, 120 knots coming over the top of this ridge as it links up with that Arctic jet and then dives off to the southeast at 9,000 feet. Low there, eastern North Gulf Coast, 45 knot winds across Kodiak, 40 to 60 knot winds with this next system, which bouncing through quickly. Moderate turbulence, all of the Aleutians, Kodiak Island.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snider, and joining me today is Cindy Preller. She's the Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska Region's National Weather Service. And Cindy, we hear a lot about tsunamis in the news, probably a lot more than we used to, but let's remind everybody, what is a tsunami?
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Sure.
Tsunami is basically, it's really simple. It's just a disturbance in the water column. So the entire water column from the seafloor to the sea surface is disturbed by something major. Usually a major earthquake. But it can also be a volcanic eruption, even an asteroid. Landslide is especially dangerous.
Okay, so if I'm sitting in my bathtub and I drop a bath toy, that could be a bathtub tsunami.
It is absolutely a bathtub tsunami.
Okay, very good. So Alaska is one of the states, or maybe the state, with the greatest amount of coastline. So tsunamis are a pretty major risk here in Alaska. Who is most at risk?
Yeah, Alaska is significant. We actually make most of the Pacific's tsunamis.
Wow, okay.
On the Aleutian Trench, and it's where the Pacific Plate is subducting underneath the American Plate, and we produce some very large, great quakes, and of course the most at risk is the Aleutian Trench.
Okay.
But that extends into south central Alaska as well. They're at huge risk, and then southeast Alaska's risk is really mostly landslide focused.
Okay. Are there any places along the Alaskan coastline that don't have a tsunami risk, or at least a very, very low risk?
Absolutely. The Bering Sea's risk is very low, and the Arctic's risk is very low as well.
Okay, so when we're talking about tsunami dangers, those are places that need to be monitored, but probably not really.
No, I
Not a
mean,
big
I
deal.
won't say never.
Yeah, sure.
Because I know
You can't.
better.
Science knows better.
Right. So,
Very good.
near to never.
Okay. Well, let's just say you're on the coast anywhere in Alaska. What are warning signs that tsunami dangers are threatening you right now?
This is super important because Alaska's greatest risk, especially out on the Aleutians and South Central, is a near-field tsunami, and then of
Okay.
course the landslides in southeast. It's even more intense because we
So
can't.
shorter warning times.
No warning time.
Okay.
The earthquake is the warning.
Okay.
And that is the most important thing for anybody to remember. The water can arrive in less than 2 minutes.
2 minutes, wow.
Yeah, at the National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, we need to get the warning out in 5 minutes. So for those near-field tsunamis, it's the earthquake is the warning. So
Okay.
if you feel shaking,
Okay.
and of course the first thing you do is drop, cover, and hold,
Right.
and you need to start counting
Okay.
slowly to 20.
The right way. How do you do that?
Oh, I teach kids to do it with their favorite things. So
Okay.
1 chocolate, 2 chocolate, 3 chocolate, but you
Chocolate's
can
good.
count anything you like.
Okay.
And if you're thinking of something happy, that helps.
Okay.
Especially helps kids, but it'll help your
So
psyche.
you don't speed up because you're getting stressed out. I see.
Right. It actually lowers your heart rate.
Interesting.
You know, so
Okay.
if you think of something you love and practice that. So you're in an earthquake, you're under the table, you're next to the ocean,
Okay.
right?
Right.
This is important if you're next to the ocean.
Okay.
If you're not next to the ocean, don't worry about it. Just stay in place under cover.
And you're talking about a mile, a quarter mile? What's close?
A mile, even a couple miles.
Okay.
You know, our rule of thumb used to be a mile inland was safe, but the last few tsunamis have taught us otherwise.
Okay.
So, yeah, you know, in Japan we had inundation up to 10 miles.
Right.
So,
Okay. And that was a big quake.
That was a big
So
quake.
you have a quake, you're counting slowly to 20.
to 20.
What's next?
And if you get to 20 and it's still shaking, you need to evacuate.
Okay.
And that is, that's scary.
Yeah.
Because you're
That's a big quake.
evacuating in a live event that's still shaking. You know, 1964 shook for 4.5 minutes. Indonesia shook for 12 minutes.
Wow. Right.
Japan, I think, shook for 6. I'm not sure of that, but it was long. Anyway, more
Right.
than 20 seconds.
And that's a sign of a very major earthquake, the worst.
Well, 20 seconds is a magnitude 7, so that's
Okay.
not the worst. But what a magnitude 7 can do is trigger a landslide.
Okay.
And those landslides might be a submarine landslide, so you won't see it, you won't hear it, you won't know it, and then the water's moving.
Okay.
So that's really, really, really dangerous. That's what happened in 64 first. Seward, Valdez, Whittier all had landslides first.
Okay. And when you're talking about the water is a warning sign too. What happens with the water that gives you a very easy visual sign that something's changing?
Not guaranteed. It might go out. It might go way out really fast enough to leave the fish behind. But that's not guaranteed. It might just be a fast flood instead.
Okay.
So either way, if it's acting like a super fast rising tide, faster than a tide should rise,
Right.
get out of there.
Okay.
And if it goes out really fast, get out of there.
Yeah.
You know, we lost a lot of lives because people will go check out the new tide pools or
Sure.
pick up fish or shells or, you know, so, and it should feel weird.
Right.
You know, it should be weird.
So pay attention to those natural warning signs and how you feel, because those are maybe the only clues you have.
Right, and you know, sound also. You can
Okay.
hear a tsunami. It'll sound like a roaring train, maybe.
Okay.
Or it might sound silent because the water's been pulled out.
Right.
And that's pretty weird. Imagine camping
Yeah.
at night
Yeah.
near the beach, and all of a sudden you don't hear the ocean anymore.
That would be different.
That would be weird. Yeah.
Okay.
And then you also might hear blowing bubbles, and that's actually from the pressure that's blowing the air out from the sand grains, rock
Interesting.
grains. So if you hear blowing bubbles, that's a little weird.
Okay.
Or clinking rocks, you know, like a rain stick. So those are the sound signs. So the visual is rushing in or rushing out, and roaring especially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of work to get people and keep people aware of what the tsunami warning signs are and what the risks are around Alaska. And there's a website that can help them do that. Where can they go online to get more information for their school, their home, their church, their business?
Oh, there's several. The National Tsunami Warning Center has a website as well, and the easiest way to look that up is just NTWC.
NTWC.
The
Okay.
URL is not intuitive at all.
Okay.
There's also ready.alaska.gov. The state of Alaska has a lot of helpful stuff. Preparedness kits. They have everything you need to get ready.
Okay.
And then for teachers and others, there's a wonderful curriculum called Alaska Tsunami Education Program.
Alaska Tsunami Education Program. Okay.
And that's AKwx.
AKwx. Okay, very good. Those are really good tips to get more information and search that out and help your own community stay safe with the threat of tsunamis around Alaska. Next time we come back and talk to you some more about the Tsunami Ready program and get more in depth on how people can learn more about the risks and what to do here in Alaska. So thank you for joining us today, Cindy. And next time on Alaska Weather Facts, more on tsunamis around Alaska. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's marine forecast for tomorrow. Today's forecast for Saturday here. West winds 15 knots on the south coast, seas about 10 feet. And west-southwest 10 to 15, not bad on the north coast, seas 7 feet. Lynn Canal, north winds 20 knots, seas at 4 feet. Stevens Passage, light northerly breeze there at 15 knots. And Clarence Strait, east winds at 20 knots. Outlook for Sunday, southerlies, 15-knot winds there for the central southern inside waters, 2 to 3 foot seas. West 15 on the south coast here, seas down to about 8 feet. 7 to 8 foot seas with south to southwest winds 15 to 20 knots on the north coast. Lynn Canal, south, 25 knots. Small craft advisories there for Sunday with seas at about 5 feet. And for Prince William Sound, winds northwest tomorrow, 20 knots, seas 3 feet. And north 15, but gust 30 knots here for the North Gulf Coast. Strongest gust, of course, out of the Copper River Delta. And western North Gulf Coast, northwest at 20. And we got 45-knot winds, full high-end gales here for the Barren Islands tomorrow, right into Kamishak Bay. Really dropping off here, again in southern Cook Inlet, just north at 15 and even lighter north of the Forelands. And for Sunday, small craft advisories, northern Cook Inlet, north winds picking up to 25 knots and northeasterly gale force winds for southern Cook Inlet at 35 knots, east 40 for Kamishak Bay, swinging around the direction. And here for the western North Gulf Coast, southeast 35 knots, Barren Island, same thing, southeast 35 knots, and the eastern North Gulf Coast, south at 30, Prince William Sound, northeast 15. Kodiak Island, northwest 30, 35 knots, sustained, gale force gust of 50 knots there, Shelikof Strait, and here southwest of Kodiak to Castle Cape, northwest at 30 knots, and small craft advisories for west winds at 25, all the way down to Cape Sarachev. Bering Sea side of the peninsula, southeast at 20, seas 12 feet, and Bristol Bay, northwest 25 with seas at 8 feet. And went the wrong direction there. There we go. Outlook for Sunday. Southwest 35 to 40 knots. The Alaska Peninsula, seas up to 25 feet. East winds at 40 knots there for Bristol Bay. 30-knot winds from the south and southwest from Castle Cape right up the east side of Kodiak. Shelikof Strait, east winds 30 knots. Fox Islands tomorrow, southeast winds 40 to 45 for Unalaska Island, Unimak Island, southeast 45 to 50 knots. So storm warnings there with 17-foot seas. Adak and Atka, southeast 45 to 50 knots. They'll throw some storms in there as well with storm force winds from the southwest turning northwest, Kiska to Shemya with 20-foot seas. And then for Sunday, west 45 knots from Shemya to Kiska, Kiska in toward Adak. Storm warnings west 55 knots with that very tight gradient. In fact, Hurricane force winds, formerly known as severe storm force winds a long time ago, at 65 knots out of the west with seas approaching 40 feet there, and 50 to 60 knot winds. So a really windy Sunday coming up here for the central east and eastern Aleutians. And for the southwest coast tomorrow, east winds 20 knots, east 40 knots, 12-foot seas for the Pribilofs, west 20 to 30 St. Lawrence Island and Norton Sound. And for Sunday, northeast 30 for St. Lawrence Island, east-northeast here for the southwest coast at 40 knots, 45 knot easterlies there St. Matthew Island, and east 40 for the Pribilofs. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, light winds 5 to 10 knots out of the northwest, east 10 on the central coast, 20 knots on the west side, and Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, southerlies at 15, and the southeast Chukchi Sea, southeast 20. And then for Sunday, we've got east winds 15 knots from Wales up to say Cape Thompson, and then really light kind of southerlies at 10 knots from Cape Thompson, turning east on the western Arctic coast, central coast same direction. In fact, pretty uniform, light winds out of the east for the entire Arctic coast. And for tonight, light winds up there tonight there with mostly clear skies all the way down the eastern interior. Some old clouds and fog in the valleys, especially the upper Yukon Valley there, possibly Copper River Basin. And then this front really washing the pieces here as it moves inland, holding together a little bit better up through here, but the winter storm warning ends for St. Lawrence Island at 6 p.m. Snow showers, ridging, another storm pushing in, stays unsettled over the Panhandle, and then there's that strong storm that brings the hurricane force winds into the Aleutian southern Bering Sea as it lifts north there toward the Pribilofs, spreading moisture into the North Gulf Coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.